I'm Nellie, and for my case study, I chose to do a student named Sarah. So, who is Sarah? Sarah's a fourth grade student with cerebral palsy. Because of her disability, Sarah has difficulty with writing and typing assignments. It was determined that assistive technology would greatly improve Sarah's quality of education. This presentation has two parts. The first part is the AT process. Sarah's education specialist explained that there are 8 steps to providing her with AT supports, and we're going to go through each and every one of those steps. So the first section is assessment. The team met with multiple of Sarah's providers and did a lot of observations. Through these, they were able to find out her strengths and what her areas of need are. It was determined that Sarah was a student who could benefit from AT services. This step is really just to get an idea of who the student is by finding out their strengths. You can build off of them with AT to help the student in those areas of need. That we're using a strengths-based approach, and we're building off of what the student can already do rather than trying to throw them into something completely different just based off of the things that we know that they can't do. So plan and data collection. This is the next step. During this step, they took note of her daily activities and what her areas of need are. They took data on her without intervention in order to establish a baseline. Baseline is very important. It can be used later to reference back to in order to see if the intervention has helped the student in any way. So later on in the evaluation stage, we'll talk about this a bit more. But during this section, it's basically just watching Sarah, taking data on her, and trying to figure out how she can be helped. So the next phase is the technology consideration. They tried out a few different types of AT, but chose to go with a modified keyboard that had larger keys and a voice recognition software. It's always good practice to try out different types of AT before making a decision, because you're never going to know what a child will respond to. Even if it's an AT that you know a lot of people with the same disability as the child you're working with has, it doesn't mean that they're gonna gravitate towards it. It might not be useful for them at all. So it's important to try out different types. IEP documentation is the next step. After they came to the final decision about what AT to use, they held an IEP meeting and documented it in her plan. This is a legally binding contract and holds all parties responsible for ensuring the AT is provided. Including this process in her IEP also ensures that she'll get services in the future, even if she were to move schools. These services would be included on her IEP. This way the process won't start all over again. Once it's in her IEP, it has to be implemented. They cannot change it without parents' permission or without holding another meeting and getting signatures from all parties involved. This is a legally binding document. And also putting it in her IEP, like I stated, can ensure that if she were to move schools or even move districts, they can look at her IEP and her AT history and see what's already been used and what's been tried and what has and hasn't worked. So the next step is implementation. This is sort of the training stage. During this stage, the team gives Sarah trainings on how to use her new devices. They also make sure to train her teacher and any staff working with her. This is extremely important. If you just throw a child in with a new technology and don't show them how to use it, you're setting them up for failure. It's also important that the adults around the student are trained as well. This way they can assist the student if they need any help. So if the student is struggling or forgets how to use something, and the team is not around to show them how again, or the experts are not around, the adults that are working with Sarah directly or working with any student with AT directly should know how to use it. That way they can assist the students if anything comes up. The next step is usage in the classroom. They found that Sarah used her modified keyboard a lot during typing assignments and was able to use the speech software for writing. This is the stage where students are allowed to utilize their devices as much as possible in the appropriate settings. Data should be taken during the stage to use during the next stage. So this is the stage when the students are using their AT devices and services in the appropriate settings. And this is when we're sort of just sitting back and monitoring whether or not it's working by taking data. And we're going to talk about that in the next step. So this step is evaluation. Sarah's team planned to meet a few times and discuss her progress. They found that her speech software had compatibility problems with some of the programs that her teachers used. During this phase, the team looks at the baseline data and the data taken during the previous phase. They compare the two to see if the AT has helped the student improve at all, and they also look at the AT and see if it needs to be adjusted in any way in order to better benefit the student. So this is when we're looking at all of that data regarding the implementation of the AT and seeing if it's even helping at all, because it may be the most high-tech, most advanced services that we can provide, and it's just not working with the student. And if that's the case, then that we need to note that and see if anything needs to be adjusted. The next phase and the final phase is the IEP team response. In Sarah's case, her team determined that they needed to offer more training and to look into different software that may be more compatible with what her teachers are using. This is the phase where the team takes the information gained from the evaluation stage and plans their response. They enact those changes that they believe will help the student, then continue the cycle of data collection, evaluation, and adjusting the AT until the student has the best possible services for their needs. This may take multiple tries, but it's important to do this often, even if it is still working, just to make sure that there isn't anything that can be improved or can be helped, because even as the student ages and grows, the AT that worked for them previously might not work anymore. So now we're moving on to part 2, which is the QIAT matrix rating. The teacher was asked to rate the district on 7 different categories. Those are consideration of AT needs, assessment of AT needs, documentation in the IEP, AT implementation, evaluation of effectiveness, administrative support, and professional development and training for AT. And in each of these categories, there are multiple little subcategories that she's ranking them in. And we're going to go over those rankings, basically just the overall rankings and the strengths and areas of need or challenges. So for the consideration of needs section, the teacher rated the section mostly strong, with a few areas that were labeled as adequate. So there was nothing lower than adequate. Their strengths, she said, were their holistic approach. She specifically said that they consider all students for AT, not just students with disabilities. Their rigorous device trials, so they try multiple things before they make their decision, and their meticulous documentation. Challenges are updating methodologies and utilizing newer tech. Those seem to be pretty common, and kind of similar challenges will show up in the rest of the categories. The next category is the assessment of AT needs. The teacher rated this section mostly strong, with only 1 adequate, so it's pretty good. Their strengths are their systematic approach, their collaboration, objective-based evaluations, so not basing it off of this child has this disability, so they will want to use this device. This is more like objectively looking at the situation and comprehensive understanding of a student's needs, not just basing it off of surface level, here's where they're struggling, this is what works. And then their challenges are considering all environments, not just the classroom. So they tend to just look at the classroom, whereas it would be a lot more useful if they considered home environment, maybe the playground, the library, all the different areas that the child is during the day. So this category is documentation in the IEP. The teacher rated this section mostly strong and only 1 adequate. So again, pretty good. Their strengths, she said, are justifying their AT decisions with details. So when writing in the IEP, explaining why they made those choices. And then the challenges are infrequent updates due to scheduling problems. So basically that she wishes they were able to update the IEPs more, but that they have a lot of problems scheduling the times to do that. The next category is implementation. The teacher rated this section equal parts strong and adequate. Their strengths that they pointed out were their integration of AT with the curriculum and extensive training programs. The challenges are inconsistent use in all environments and stagnant tech support. So basically, they need to be more consistent about using the AT in different environments, and they need to upgrade and update their tech support in order to keep up with the growing technology. For evaluation of effectiveness, the teacher rated the section mostly strong and only 1 adequate. The strengths that she pointed out were their regular reviews of data and of the AT, their feedback collection, and their data-driven strategies. So rather than just walking in like, let's try this out, they really take a look at data before they make any choices. Her challenges, she said, are that the administrative process can cause implementation delays, so can cause them to have to delay actually providing the supports because they have to go through an entire administrative process. For administrative support, she rated the section mostly strong with only one adequate. The strengths that she pointed out were that she has strong administrative backing and clear policies. That's really crucial because when the policies aren't very clear, it can be hard to provide the supports because you're not really sure which direction to go in. And then her challenges are budget constraints, which is a very common challenge, and the rapid changes in technology. So this one keeps coming up. And then for the professional development and training for AT, this is the last category. She rated the section mostly adequate with only one strong. So this is actually the weakest section. Even though adequate still, it's not bad, but this is her weakest section. She said that the strengths are their ongoing staff training and staff development, but that they have challenges with the rapidly evolving technology and the lack of engagement with external experts. So it is very difficult for everybody involved at the school to do their day-to-day school jobs and keep up to date with the very rapidly changing technology. So it's really important to use experts, and she says that that's something that they still face challenges with.